Okay.
I needed glasses before
Good evening.
that, 'cause I didn't get them until
Good evening.
12.
Welcome to the November 26th, 2018 Board of Directors meeting of the Sewer Authority, Midcoastside.
That could really affect your early development too.
That explains a
The
lot.
meeting is called to order. We have roll call, please.
Director Reddick,
Here.
Director Sater Carter,
Present.
Director Warren,
Here.
Chair Blanchard,
Here.
Director Penrose,
Here.
Director Boyd.
And so do we have anybody who has a comment? For number 2, okay. So now we go to item 3, which is the closed session.
And we'll start with item D.
D, okay.
Hot pocket.
Okay, welcome back. We've just finished the closed session, and we have no reportable action to report.
Before we start, could we introduce our
You
city
don't want it?
manager?
No.
Oh, sure.
Is it on it?
And then we have.
We have a new city
Oh,
manager,
very good, super.
and he's sitting right here, if everybody would like to say hello.
Why don't you
Tom
bring him up?
Nisbet.
And
This
introduce
is
him
public
to the
comment,
group.
so it's
Yeah,
perfect
actually,
time for you to speak.
I get my 3 minutes, huh?
Go
Starting
for it.
now.
Kidding.
No, my name is Bob Nisbet. I'm just glad to be here. Started about 4 weeks ago. And looking to move here very soon.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations, and welcome.
Congratulations.
Do we have any other comments or items? Okay. So then we go on to item 6, the consent agenda. So we have A, B, C, and D. So we have 1 to approve minutes from October 22nd. B is to approve this person from November 26th. C is to receive the fiscal year 2018-19 expense and revenue report for period ending October 31st. And D is to authorize the general manager to attend and be reimbursed for all expenses related to the California Society of Municipal Officers, CS, MFO annual conference in Palm Springs in January. Okay, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Who seconded it?
Boyd.
Thank you.
Notice
Okay.
it broke with tradition, didn't pull anything for it.
I noticed that.
There you go, appreciate it.
Hey, that's
Not
my
even
last
for
name.
posterity.
Okay. Okay, so now we go to item 7, and now the first one is 7A, authorize the general manager, execute a superseding grant of easement agreement for the weather agency facility expansion project.
So moved.
Hold on just a
I'm
minute,
confused about the
because
terminology,
Yeah,
because
but-
this is the receiving agency, not the granting agency.
that is correct. We're just trying to get, keep this thing moving along, and the board could decide that we're premature.
Right.
What happened this afternoon is Jonathan Whitwer, counsel for GCSD, sent me an email, this email that I'm handing to you, and we had a telephone conversation. And basically what he's saying is, we're not granting the easement till we have the permit, till Sam has the permit in hand. And that there are some revisions to the, easement document. So I have a track changes version of that. The changes are described there, and I can talk us through them if you want. If the board's pleasure is to think about this or not decide it tonight, I don't know that it would affect the progress of the project, given that we're waiting for the coastal development permit, which Keishan may be able to speak to. But I wanted to present this to you so you could act if that was your pleasure.
When do we expect the coastal development permit, Keisha?
We yet to hear from the planning department, the planning county. We submitted it in October, mid-October, so we hope to hear something in the next couple of weeks. We
Okay.
are closely following it up. and we have
May I
information.
suggest then, in the interest of time, that we continue this, and that you send us the documents that you just handed us, so we can have them read ahead of time, and we put it on maybe the agenda for the 10th.
Yes.
Let me
Can we
mention one
keep
thing.
this document?
Sure. Absolutely.
Well, let me mention one thing, from board and general manager and general counsel. The biggest issue that I see here is that GCSD wants the project boundary to be specified in the easement agreement, and Sam doesn't wanna specify it until the as-bills are available, and as near as I can tell, there's a standoff there.
Well, what, I can speak to that. I mean, one of the, and actually Mr. Monahan can, he's been dealing directly with the surveyor who's done the legal description and the plat. But the idea was if you write one now and there's something happens in the field, you have to move something over 6 inches and you have to write a new one. So rather than doing that, it was proposed by the surveyor that we just do it once after it's built, and you have one that you don't have to redo, that you might, and we don't know if we'd have to, but it's possible that you would. So that was where the whole confusion arose, and I suggested that, and Mr. Whitward suggested that really wasn't gonna work for GCSD. I don't think Sam has a problem with producing a legal description and a plat,
Right.
and then redoing it if as necessary. So that really isn't an issue, it's just and I don't think the new language is of terrible concern to Sam either, but there's no reason to act, we don't have to act tonight.
And plus, one of his memos, I don't know if it's this one or one that he sent just to us, but he says we wouldn't have any problem re-recording it later after the as-bills are available, but the initial one to be recorded, he really wants the plan boundaries to be specified there.
Sure. Sure, and I think Sam staff is perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
We understand.
What's commonly done, Tim?
Commonly done is, typically afterwards, in case anything changed, just as Carl indicated.
So you'd have a construction easement and then a long-term easement?
Yes, and go out and survey it properly when it's all done. But this is a pretty simple project. The boundaries are pretty definable. There should be really no reason for it to vary anything from what the design shows right now. And I spoke to the surveyor today, and he has the legal description, 50% written. He said he could have it to us by Wednesday. We already have the plat, so the two items are there. We asked him to just speed it up because of, the request by GCSD. So we should have that all wrapped up.
Thank you.
We had not received, just for clarification, we had not received anything from GCSD as to what they were waiting for, so there was some confusion as to, because we had brought this at the previous meeting, it had been delayed on the GCSD meeting in October, and then it wasn't on the November meeting, but we didn't know why. So today was the first day that we found out why. So,
Thank you.
there had
yeah.
been no communication.
And I understand Mr. Whitworth's been out of the office, so that's something explains a certain amount of uncertainty.
But I just wanted to clarify after Director Warren's comment, it wasn't Sam refusing to do something, there was some confusion as to whether or not the proposal that we had made previously was acceptable or not. And we had not heard back until today that we needed to basically finalize that first. We had actually asked the surveyor to hold off and wait until we had clarification as to what we were proceeding with, and we had not received that direction, so we hadn't asked him to proceed. So now that we've received that information, we will proceed and get this resolved.
Thank you. Okay. So now we go on to, just postponing A. So now we go to item B. Discuss and adopt the age of Coastside Public Agencies.
Yes.
We have a handout here.
Yes, this was on the October meeting agenda. Because of the length of the meeting, we were not able to get to that item. And we had actually had someone who was here, the general manager from the Harbor District had actually come to the meeting to speak. when we realized that the meeting was going long and that the likelihood was pretty slim that we wouldn't be getting to this item, he sent me an email, that way, if we did get to it, I could at least read the email, and if not, then, I would still be able to do at the next time, because he was not sure if he would be able to come to, future meetings. I'm sure you're aware that he's on a very short tenure. I believe next week is his last week, and so he was not able to attend. But what you have in front of you is the email that he sent to me, which is generally what he was planning to say at the previous meeting. He was very concerned about any implications of the proposal, primarily that it would not be approved.
Harold, do we have a written policy, or Beverly? Do we have
So
something
it should be in
written?
the attachment.
It begins on page 79 in the packet. Actually, it is page
It is page
79.
But this is proposed, not existing.
Yes, that's
No, we
correct.
have nothing.
No, we
What-
have no policy,
what-
no written policy.
That's correct. I
Okay,
think it's
that was
been a
my question.
practice, but there's no
Yeah.
written
A
policy.
very long-term practice.
Thank you.
I actually am not in favor of this, because this is not a for-profit company which can, be magnanimous to some entities and just charge the other customers a little bit more. This is a cost center organization, and, if we're providing free services to some entities, then that means that our ratepayers are paying more than they're getting. And, so I'm pretty solidly opposed to this.
I would be opposed to the payment as well, but I do think that we could offer the service and then ask for full recovery of anything spent,
Okay, yeah,
Um,
that's fine.
and also limit our own liability, Sam's liability. So I think we limit liability and get full recovery of costs, then all we're doing is acting as good neighbors.
So
to
basically,
expedite things.
we're making available expedient service, but we
Yes.
still have to, yeah, I'm fine with that approach.
So it needs to be brought back though with the language
Yes,
dealing with the liability issue.
right,
Otherwise, we're just inheriting the liability.
right.
So I wanna see that language. I'm not willing to just approve it
No,
as is.
Well, and I just wanna clarify, we already have, a history of providing, assistance to fellow public agencies on the coast side. And that has never been in a formalized agreement, but, as you all probably remember, when I first got here, one of the, directives I received was to continue to look for ways of minimizing impact on a need for staff by having mutual aid arrangements or benefits, so that should we be in a situation where we needed assistance, we could reach out. For that to work, there has to be something in it for them, like when they need help and they reach out to us, we don't charge them for it. It's that's why it's mutual aid.
We're serving the same pool of taxpayers, basically.
Right. So for example,
Not when you include the harbor district.
but I think you have to charge for the services. But
we
that
never
doesn't-
have. So for example, so let me give you an example so you can kind of see why. So we have to, at least once a year, and let me know if it's more frequently that we do, we have to go out and inspect the outfall. Do we do it quarterly?
We used to do it quarterly.
We used to do it quarterly.
We do it annually now, but sometimes we have to take periodic samples. We might have to.
We don't have a boat. So the
It's still
harbor
a gift of
district,
public funds though.
no, but the harbor district takes us out on their boat with no charge so that we can do that inspection. And that's just mutual aid. So we're not talking about providing services other than that initial sort of triage of the situation, which we do for anyone in the district with no charge.
But that needs boundaries, otherwise it's not accountable. So
Yeah,
it
what-
needs to
what's
be in
happened
writing,
for-
it needs boundaries, it needs full cost recovery from the member agencies, and it needs a liability premium in the, language in the agreement, so.
And maybe we should be paying for the boat.
So for us, for us at Montera, SAM staff has seen situations where customers may need some extra help in an urgent situation. The SAM staff has always contacted our manager and provided rationale and received approval that way. And so we've been very satisfied that this isn't, Sam making a spending and liability decision, but rather coming to us and to the place where that responsibility resides, and we're going, yeah, that's the smart thing to do, thank you for asking, thank you for giving us the offer, and so we've been very satisfied with that, and we're not feeling a need to go change that, because we like the way that works. It works very well, and we're glad that Sam staff has been very aware and attentive of, hey, this situation, could really benefit, everybody would benefit from dealing with this expediently because Sam staff is already here. So that's, for us, if we go down this route, there's questions like the liability question, all this stuff, it's like, the informal approach has been very good because it goes to the right place, asks the right question, gets the right consent, and then from there, it's you've got that backing, and it's good to go. I understand with the new situation with the vendor, it's a different situation, so something to sort out. But
I would suggest that at the very least, even if the board decides not to charge in the future, that at the very least, Sam has to get a hold harmless and indemnification agreement with any of those agencies.
if they came, say they come to Montera, they talk to Clemens, and Clemens says, please, after they've exchanged good information, where's the need for that?
If something goes wrong,
If something
It's
goes
risk,
wrong,
and
well,
risk
there's
has costs.
CSRMA, and SAM has a policy, and so do all the member agencies. Hey, it's,
I'm expressing my opinion.
yeah, we're
Thank you.
not worried about that risk, because Sam has acted very responsibly in all this, so we're not feeling that need. Because Sam has done a good job on this.
So I hear what the board is directing. I will tell you that before I bring the language back, I will also have a fee analysis done, because we have no basis for what that cost would be. We've never charged outside costs. So that would be new for us, because we've always passed it on either through the collection services agreement, or it's just been a cost that Sam has taken on itself. In other words, you know, they help us, we help them, sort of, it defers our cost, it defers their cost. So we would have to establish what those fees would be for various types of service that we have provided in the past. So for example, we got a call out this past weekend, or previous weekend, for assistance with a storm drain issue. And so staff responded because we were called and asked. We don't really have a set fee, and generally when someone is going to make that decision as to whether or not they want us to come help, they would want to know what that cost would be. They generally don't want it just an open checkbook, they wanna know. So we should develop what those fees are, so that it's very clear to the public, anyone, whether it be a homeowner, a business, whomever, that this is what the cost is, and we aren't making it up sort of on a case-by-case basis, because then I think you would get into some issues of, well, it seems like we're charging X agency differently than we're charging Y agency.
Well, as best as you could codify it, I think it should just be cost recovery. You know, whatever the out-of-pocket costs are, is probably what's reasonable, since, you know, staff is amortized over a whole year.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that, but we'll put that together, and, because that would need to be a fee that is approved by this board. So, we'll work on that, And then at some future date, we'll bring both a policy with that language in it, along with what we recommend as the cost recovery for, I would say, the standard types of assistance that we're generally asked for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any more? So now we go on to item C. Amend the contract with Bolsner, Meadow, Nelson, and Dudson for legal services to extend the contract through December 31st, 2019, and increase the authorized amount by $100,000 for the total contract amount not to exceed $290,000.
And because this concerns my contract,
Yes.
I am going to walk out of the room and allow you to have this
Okay.
discussion without me influencing it in any way
Okay.
whatsoever.
I have a quick question.
You may ask.
You have said that your services will be, your contract through December 31, 2019. And after that, before that, we need to be looking for a new attorney, it was my understanding.
Yes. That's a
That
bit
was-
of a longer discussion.
Yes,
but
yes, but it
is a
puts
bit of a
this
longer
into
discussion.
context.
Has to do with my work schedule, and has to do with my firm, and who's willing to do this if I don't do it.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
in a nutshell,
Have your bills been paid up to date?
there's some sitting, I
Your
believe there's
invoices.
probably some sitting in the stack there,
But
but
you're
I
not
think they're pretty
behind
current.
on-
I don't believe we're behind right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the Warren Report has a whole series of, smaller invoices
Mhm.
stretching back a number of months.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to approve anything tonight. I haven't seen the contract amendment. I'd like to see the contract brought back so that I can understand, what scope of work we're talking about, and, I wanna understand the time extension. I'm generally not in favor of going beyond the end of the fiscal year in 2019, as opposed to continuing on until December. So there's no documents attached to the staff report, and I wanna see those documents.
I would suggest, negotiating with the firm to have, a flexible end date, and then SAM board needs to start looking for new counsel early in the year, because it can take quite a while to find counsel that a majority of the board members like. So you need to start early.
I'm not sure I
and
follow.
If you start looking early in the year and it takes 4 months, then if you have a flexible end date with this firm, then potentially you might be able to make it happen on a fiscal year boundary like you want.
We could do it on a month-to-month basis.
You can do it on whatever is mutually agreeable to the board and to the council.
Well, my suggestion would be to the board that we propose a month-to-month basis.
And let's have a performance evaluation in closed session, and then also look at the agreement at the same time and
Right.
potential amendments. So we haven't had an evaluation in some time, so I'd like to have that discussion before moving on this tonight.
okay,
More-
okay.
Any more discussion? Okay,
And noting the time,
yes, if you like.
the chair's discretion as to what we
Right.
try to address
Yes.
next.
What's most important, what's most
I would
important?
hazard a guess that the 20-year CIP is a really long
Right.
agenda item.
As is B.
Potentially not.
Yeah, I mean, it's been beaten to death, so I'm not sure that the 20-year plan really needs that much more discussion. So it's
Are we
really,
skipping the internal control processes review?
yeah, so it's, do you wanna just keep going, or do we want to look at a different time? I mean, it's,
I'd like to make sure we do 7F.
Right.
That one should not be
Right.
long.
Right,
Thank you.
right.
so you wanna do 7F?
this weekend, and that way we'll end at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
We can, and we can wait till, the other ones will be tabled then, right?
That, if there's no
Sure.
recommendation to extend, then the answer to that would be yes.
Yes, there you go.
I believe the staff recommendation is to move the approval of resolution number 8-2018, recognizing years of service of Director Leonard Warren.
I'll make that, I'll second that.
I'm so moved and second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Why you're not recusing yourself?
There you go.
There's no conflict.
Right.
So,
Oh, great idea.
in case there's anybody who hasn't heard this already, 21 years on 2 boards continuously. I don't think anyone else has ever done that, and I don't think anybody else is ever gonna do it.
Do you recommend it?
No. And the one thing is I didn't take Catherine's advice when I was on both Granada and Sam and ran for MCC, and so I think the only person ever to serve on one of the sanitary district boards and the MCC and Sam at the same time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a mistake. But I think that being on this board is one of the more important things we do, since this is the board that runs the sewer plant. And the member agencies are, I don't know how to characterize it, so I think I'll skip that, but in terms of making sure we have the right policies, this board is where the rubber meets the ground, and I have, for most of my time on this board, even when it was a very divided board, I've enjoyed being here and doing what we do. It's been somewhat more stressful for the last year. And I really hope that gets resolved and this board can go back to being as collegial as it once was. When I started here, it was Naomi and Jerry, and there weren't many 4-4 votes, but there were serious disagreements that somehow we always managed to come out with something at the end. You know, we would argue about things for a long time, but very, very few 4-4 votes. Really the biggest 4-4 vote was when a certain board member insisted on being elected board chair and wouldn't and squatted on the position for 3 years. And yeah. So the accusation that there's many 4-4 votes, go read 40 years worth of minutes. It's not supportable accusation. And I'll still be watching, at least reading the agendas. Probably not watching the board meetings because I don't have time anymore. And one of the things that hasn't been particularly public information up until I posted it on Nextdoor a week ago is 5 years ago when I filed to run for re-election, I said to myself, this is it, this is the last time I'm not gonna run again. And then not quite 3 years ago, I met someone who would become my wife, and that kind of clinched it for retiring from politics for now.
Oh, we'll miss you.
Yes.
This is the end of an era.
So do I take that to mean you won't be here on Saturday for the
Well,
strategic plan?
The Renata appointed on a interim or contingency basis or whatever, effective December 7th, which is my last legal day as a director, the new SAM director, so yes, I will be here on Saturday.
And, the new SAM director, so who is that?
Barbara Dye.
Oh, okay.
So Jim will be
Right,
continuing,
yes.
and for those of you who think sometimes I'm harsh, you're I wish I was back after Barbara died, sitting here a lot.
Wow.
All right, well then, just a reminder that Saturday at 10 o'clock is the strategic plan workshop here. And it will also, it's at 10?
I thought it was noon.
No, it's in two pieces, with a working lunch in the middle. It starts at 10, from 10 to approximately noon, the board, I mean, it's public, but it was sort of the board's emphasis. And then at 12:30 is an invitation for the managers from the member agencies to also join us, for the second half of the meeting. But of course, it's public, so they can come to the whole thing, should they choose to do so.
Thank you.
So 10 to 2, and we'll be finished at 2.
I'm not gonna make any
promises.
guarantees that will be done by then, and it will also be, recorded, so.
Because we have to go to the fire station open house and see the new, fire training tower.
Oh, yes.
And what time is that?
I forget, I don't think fire members either, but,
It's the same day, isn't it?
yeah, it's the same
It's in
day,
the afternoon, I think.
yeah.
Oh, good. Free cookies.
Yeah, free cookies and you can
All
climb
right.
the.
You think they do barbecue?
So we're over
Dang.
time here.
9:03.
Now,
Spaghetti dinner.
any more comments, or can we adjourn?
No, I
Probably have
just,
a cookie.
I wanted to say I have worked with, Leonard on a number of different projects and boards, and, Leonard always brings thoughtful comments and heartfelt comments, and, the coast, if there were a way for everyone to say thank you, I think, we should, the whole coast should say thank you. You've been very concerned about rates and, quality of work and the agencies themselves, and I think you've done a very good job, so thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thanks, I appreciate hearing that. I don't actually hear it too much.
No,
No, but you'll leave a void, I mean, you know, as somebody else who has a long history here, and most of it with you in public life, it's a big change.
And I remember on holiday eves at Dennis's house with you.
Oh dear.
oh dear. Well, and one more thing, Leonard, I wish you all the joy and success in your future
Yes.
with yet, and, because you have earned it, and from what you have said, you have a very wonderful wife, and I wish you a very long and happy marriage.
Thanks.
I'd like to say, you and I have done a lot of work together. It hasn't always been easy, but I've always been able to rely on you as someone who likes to get to the facts and the historical record. We've dumpster dived through a lot of old stuff together, but you have far exceeded my investment in that kind of time. But some of the things that you've brought up out of the record has been really useful at helping us figure out, okay, how do we get into this mess? What was the original point? Does that still make sense? We can't answer those questions without some of that material. It's been really valuable. Your dedication to the Brown Act, I'm a fellow
Yeah.
Brown Act aficionado, and I deeply appreciate your long-standing dedication to that. This agency and others have benefited from your vigilance on that and your understanding of what the act says and what it's about.
And the spirit.
Yeah. And I've appreciated our partnership. We've gotten a lot of really interesting things done together, and you've earned this. The coast ought to be so lucky as to have anybody who's willing to give this kind of time for even just one stint. And here you've done 5+ terms. That's an amazing commitment, and the coast side, whether it knows it or not, is going to miss that kind of level of investment. And hopefully it'll serve as a bit of inspiration to somebody who can step up, one or more people who can step up and do their part.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that was well. You're the most valuable player in many ways for both good Island and Sim in many ways in terms of your wealth of knowledge. So,
I don't hear these things too much, we mostly hear from people that are not happy, and, you know, I try and keep telling myself, it's a small, loud minority.
It's a family.
Leonard, I've only been involved in politics for about 4 years, but I heard your name well before that. So you are a legend, and you don't get to be a legend just because of people's bad feelings about you. You get to be a legend because you bring something to the community,
Right.
so,
That's-
thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Shall we adjourn the meeting in
Yeah,
honor
yeah.
of Leonard?
yeah, adjourn. Okay.